Writing a comprehension response is distinctly different from writing an essay. Because of your short word count and your limited time frame, markers have a completely different set of expectations from you. The purpose of this video is to highlight those expectations and to give you a strategy for writing a short, sharp response. Let's cover the expectations of Section 1 first. The exam brief suggests 60 minutes working time for Section 1, which, broken among 3 questions, is 20 minutes per response. I say 15 to 20 minutes here because in class, unfortunately, we don't always have 20 minutes per response. But looking at the silver lining, if you can write your response in 15 minutes, that gives you 5 minutes up your sleeve to use to your advantage for the rest of the exam. The exam brief also dictates that each response must be between 200 and 300 words. Now that might seem like a lot at first glance, but when you're struggling to fit in everything you want to say, everything you feel you need to say, 300 words does not seem like much at all. So, considering you've only got 20 minutes and 300 words, keep in mind that the marker doesn't expect too much. We know that you're writing a response to an unseen text in a short time frame. We don't expect the world, so keep it simple. Be disciplined, and this video will cover a lot of the disciplines that we want. And answer the question. This links in with keeping it simple. A lot of students struggle to read the entire question because they're rushing or they're panicking. Take your time, write a simple, clear, accurate response, and you should do well. Both Section 1 and Section 2, which is your essay, expect you to provide analysis and to make inferences. But where Section 1 differs is that the marker has particular disciplines that they expect from you because your time frame is so short. So the marker is looking for concision. They want you to be concise, which means to be succinct and to get to your point quickly. With only 20 minutes to work with, you don't have time to work your way around your point. Be short, be sharp, get to your point quickly. They also want you to be precise, which means to be really specific. Don't be vague. Don't say many techniques are used. Be precise. Tell me which techniques are used. The last thing the marker is looking for is meta-language. This refers to the terminology we expect students to be using in English. To put it really simply, name your techniques. Name your syllabus concepts. To expand on this a bit further, I've compiled a list of do's and don'ts for this section. So we'll start with the do's. Get to your point quickly, be sharp and specific, and name the techniques that you are analysing. The don'ts. Don't write global statements. You don't have time to be writing global statements. In an essay, sure, go ahead. Sometimes these are really effective. In the comprehension section, you are going to get no marks for a global statement. Everything you say should be really strictly linked to answering the question. Don't summarize or describe the text. This isn't a text that the marker is unfamiliar with. In the essay, you might be writing about a novel that the marker's never read, so yes, it's important to summarize the text. In Section 1, the marker has the text right in front of them. Don't waste time by summarizing or describing the text. Don't be vague. This is probably the thing that markers get annoyed by the most. Avoid using words such as specific, particular, and certain. Instead of saying a particular idea, what idea? Instead of saying an idea about race, what idea about race? Don't be vague. Lastly, don't waffle. The amount of responses markers read where there's 200 words dedicated to almost nothing is quite baffling. Make sure you're using your language well. Don't talk about nothing trying to fool the marker into thinking you've got a sophisticated response. They will see straight through it. Follow the disciplines, be short and sharp, don't waffle. Now that we've covered the disciplines that markers expect students to have, let's see how we can structure our writing using those disciplines to produce short, sharp responses that get you the marks that you're looking for. My first piece of advice would be to base each paragraph around one thing you have comprehended from the text. Some teachers and textbooks suggest that you can base your paragraphs around techniques or bits of evidence, and that's fine. I prefer to base each paragraph around an inference for a few reasons. Firstly, it allows you to back up your inference with multiple techniques, which allows you to deepen your analysis. I also think it's a cleaner way of structuring your response, as your ideas can flow and evolve from one paragraph to the next. So let's look at the structure of each paragraph. Your first sentence, or your first few sentences, as long as it's before your evidence, should be dedicated to answering the question. Hit the discriminators of the question and show the marker that you are on track to answer it well. You only get one first impression. If the marker reads your first sentence and it's waffle or it doesn't make sense, that's a poor first impression. If your first sentence is short and sharp and gives the marker everything they want, you're off to a great start. Another reason it's really good to answer all aspects of the question before your evidence is it means you're on track to have a really good paragraph. You're doing your job. From there, keeping it simple, find some evidence and analyze it. Your analysis will only get better with practice, so make sure that you're practicing. We will go into how to analyze in more depth later on. This video is purely dedicated to the structure. So open up by answering the question, analyze with evidence, and then link back to the inference that you comprehended, the one that you highlighted in your first sentence. Now, if you're thinking that this structure is very simplistic, you are correct, but that's because it needs to be. With these 3 dot points, it gives you the tools to write a response that hits all the discriminators of the question and provides the marker with evidence to back up your word. So let's break it down a little bit further and show how each bit of this section really works. Firstly, answer the question. Hit all the discriminators of the question really specifically, so both the constructional and the inferential elements, as well as anything else that's important in the question. From there, you need to provide some evidence and analysis. So identify the major technique or techniques you'll analyze, find some evidence, a quote of that technique, and then analyze the technique. Why is it significant? What is its effect? How does it position the reader or the viewer to respond? And from there, explain how that analysis supports your inference. Then, repeat. You can either strengthen your existing paragraph with another piece of evidence, or you can start a new paragraph based around another inference. Looking at it in this way, your first sentence is pretty much going to be this technique equals this idea. Show the marker that you are answering all aspects of the question. From there, cover the analytical element. Then, clarify that inferential element. If you are doing those 3 things, you're hitting the expectations that the marker wants from you. That concludes this video, and with it my trilogy on the comprehension section. I hope that you found it helpful in some ways. Your task from here is to start looking at some sample responses and to start writing your own. Best of luck, guys.